Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Apex Online Racing for some more hype energy F1 League action. My name is Luke Etheridge, and as always, I will be taking you through the PlayStation 4 F2 division, where tonight it is round 6 out of 22 in Season 20. It is time for the Spanish Grand Prix around the Circuit de Catalunya. Who will end up being victorious over this very technical circuit where you require a lot of concentration and a lot of downforce? Good setup definitely needed on your car. If you weren't with us for the previous race at the Zandvoort circuit, we saw Suku take his second victory of the season. Absolutely fantastic job from him to take the win, and in doing so he has extended his lead in the championship as the McLaren driver. Simo Casiaro took second position and Coutinho taking third. The Suku now has an 18-point lead over Coutinho in the championship. Simo Casiaro is a further 3 points back. We also saw Speedster take his third pole position in a row. He was the only retirement last time out, so no points whatsoever, and it doesn't look like he's going to be here tonight to try and recover from that. Well, let's see what sort of action we are going to get. As I said, a very technical circuit, not necessarily known in the real world for its fantastic overtaking action, if I'm being perfectly honest, but I'm sure tonight will provide plenty of racing for all of you. We saw some great racing last time out, saw some great alternate strategies as well that different drivers were going for, and hopefully we'll get the same around this circuit. And first used in Formula 1 in 1991, used more often than all the rest of the circuits in Spain combined. The only circuit in Spain that has been used more than 10 times. This year was its 30th Grand Prix. Who will end up coming out on top? We've got the qualifying session starting soon then, and then it will be an 18-minute qualifying, and then a 50% distance race, so 33 laps around the Circuit de Catalunya. 4.555 kilometers, 2.909 miles, 16 corners, 2 DRS zones, obviously leading into the main overtaking zones at turn 1 and turn 10. So this could be an interesting race. Qualifying could be oh so important. If the F1 League that we saw earlier is anything to go by, might definitely be one to watch, to see drivers going for the alternate strategy, especially as, again, doesn't seem to be too many drivers at the moment on the grid. Hopefully we'll get a few more in qualifying, otherwise we might see a few more different drivers deciding again to start on that medium tyres to get the optimum race strategy. Just waiting for everyone to ready up then. Weather, not normally a factor around here. Obviously, there was the famous 1996 race where Michael Schumacher took his victory in appalling conditions. There was also some rain the first time they raced here then in 1991. So you do see occasional wet weather around here. Not as much as you do at some of the other circuits, especially not some of the other European circuits, like last time in Zandvoort, known quite often for rain, and the one next week as well. We've seen some wet races next time around at probably the circuit you want the least wet races, the Monaco street circuit. So make sure to check that out. And in what is an absolutely fantastic commentator's curse, if I do say so myself, it is raining cats and dogs out there. Unfortunately, I don't know the Spanish for cats and dogs, otherwise I'd tell you that, but intermediate conditions. Doesn't look like we'll be getting dry anytime soon, so that really negates what I said about the drivers maybe qualifying on the medium tyres to start on that set of tyres. Obviously now it's absolutely pouring it down, so makes no difference whatsoever. Don't think we've seen any wet sessions so far this season with these guys, so it'll be interesting, but it'll definitely be interesting to see what they go for and see how the drivers react to this. You usually need quite a lot of downforce around this circuit anyway, just to try and cope with the cornering. A lot of medium to high speed corners, as you see Pasty heading out on circuit, and we've also got the Haas of Giggs heading out. Giggs actually getting his best result last time out. Great job from him to finish in 7th position. We also saw Sam Gamer, he finished in 8th, got the fastest lap, his worst result so far of the season. We'll go through the full running order. Boss Wanted got his best finish with 4th. As we said earlier, the podium was Suku winning, Coutinho finished 3rd, Simon Casiaro splitting the 2 championship leaders, he finished 2nd. Boss Wanted his best result in 4th. Fidele managed to get 5th. Pedro getting his best result of the season as well with 6th. Giggs 7th. 8th for Sam Gamer. The 9th and final finisher was CGT Pastiswaker, and the only retirement last time out was Speedster. So we have got Bainer and Deso here tonight instead of Speedster and Boss Wanted. So let's just see how these drivers cope with these weather conditions. Does look as though the entire of the qualifying session is going to be wet and not really any nice fluffy white clouds amongst these very dark, dismal grey. The beauty of the Mercedes livery not shining as much as it would in the dry conditions. So they're going to need to be careful, I think, some of these drivers about how they do have a lot of intermediate tyres, so if it's dry in the race they should have plenty of chance. Also, we'll probably see the drivers fueling their cars up a bit more to set multiple lap times. That is quite common to see in these conditions, drivers going for multiple laps just to try and get used to the car in these conditions, find out where the grip is, generally taking slightly different racing lines. Sometimes you do want to straighten up the car earlier and take the later apex to ensure that when you're putting down 900 brake horsepower through those rear Pirellis, that you've got the best possible chance of getting maximum traction. And you can just see how slippery it is out there as we're going to follow Sam around then for the hot lap of this circuit. Very early start-finish line, but one of the longest runs to turn 1 on the calendar, as you brake extremely hard for the chicane at turns 1 and 2. Need to be careful on the curbs in these conditions. Turn 3, normally putting in a lot more throttle than you would there, and Sam's just ran out of track, slowed down ever so slightly, so very clever there to avoid invalidating his lap time. The long right-hander at 4, the front left tyre takes an absolute killing through this circuit. Turns 3, 4 and turn 9 being the main parts where that tyre suffers, and a bit through turn 12 as well. Nice and steady through 5, which is a possible overtaking opportunity in the race. Then this tricky chicane at 7 and 8. Need to be very careful with the car through there. Turn 9, you can see a slight dab of brakes there on the left foot from Sam, just keeping it nice and careful. The second DRS zone, but no DRS obviously in these weather conditions. Heavy braking for one of the main overtaking opportunities on this track. Turn 10, in the dry at least, at the end of that DRS straight. Coming through 11 and 12 now, this long right-hander where you can take multiple lines through there to give yourself the best possible run. Now the chicane that was added for the 2008 season at turns 13, 14 and 15, making this an easier right-hander than it used to be in the olden days. Taken flat in the dry. What time is it going to be for Sam? 1:27.659 so far for Sam. So Giggs the fastest at the moment. You've got the Red Bull of Simon Casiaro heading to the checkered flag, and it looks like this is going to be the slowest of everyone that has set a time so far. No, just jumps ahead of Pasti as Pedro manages to go fastest of everyone then with a 1:27.169. We'll see what Bainer can do. He looks as though he's taking it very steady indeed in the racing point. No ERS on traction. That's a very interesting tactic from him. Try and maybe set the best possible run. Coutinho invalidating his lap after making a mistake. We did see a yellow flag in sector 1, which obviously now looks like it was caused by the Williams. So Pedro the fastest after the first one with a 1:27.169. Giggs in second, Bainer third, Deso just picking up into 4th position then. Very decent lap from him in the Mercedes. Interestingly that Giggs has come into the pits, because I thought the drivers, as I said, would set multiple lap times. Pasti, this looks like it's going to be a big improvement for him. Could be good enough for pole position. And indeed it is with a 1:26.921. Great lap there from Pasti. Fidele has invalidated again, so it doesn't look like we're going to get any improvement from him. Likewise with Sam. So let's see what the championship leader can do. Suku hasn't had a pole position this season, and interestingly, no one who's had a pole position has won a race so far this season. Speedster with 3, Sam with 1, and Deso with 1 pole position. But Suku and Coutinho have 2 wins. Suku now in second position at the moment with a 1:26.162. And Pedro, he instantly goes quicker again with a 126.725, and Samuel Casiaro splitting Suku and Pasti. So Pedro in a red Ferrari with the Schumacher helmet. Where have we seen that performing well? In the wet at Spain before. Decent lap from him. Let's see what Coutinho can do. He's kept it cleaner on this lap, hasn't made a mistake. Stays in a 9th position though at the moment. Interestingly, that Giggs and Sam went into the pits, so feeling like they'll be better served by a fresh set of tyres rather than getting a bit more track experience. I can sort of see why they're doing that, especially if they don't need to use these in the race at all, as Pasti has been off the circuit at turn 12 then in the Renault. I'd be surprised if he's done any damage there because it is a long way to the barriers. He's able to continue. Have to wait and see whether he does set another lap time. So Pasti in 2nd place at the moment. He indeed is coming into the pits for Dele. Looks like he's carrying on to try and improve his... He hasn't set a time yet, so to try and get his first time on the board in the Red Bull. And it's 7th position for him. His teammate looks like he's setting a very good lap indeed at the moment. We'll see what Suku can do through the final corner, though, in the McLaren. Stays off the curb, taking it very safe through that final corner. And an absolutely fantastic lap time, 126.394. Can Samuel Casiaro match that in the Red Bull? No, he cannot, but it's good enough for 2nd position at the moment. Pedro has invalidated, so he's going for the tactic of carrying on and putting in another lap. Coutinho was a 2nd up on his personal best, which surprisingly wouldn't have been enough to move him off the bottom of the grid, but it looks like he's going to give it another go. Boehner, haven't seen him for a while and haven't talked about him a bit in the Racing Point. What can he do? Doesn't look like he's improving at this moment in time, so we'll probably end up staying in 6th position. And indeed he does, just over a second off of pole position at the moment. 10 minutes to go in the session then, and it's Suko, Saimo and Pedro, the top 3 at the moment. Pasti, the only other man to get into the 1:26, as we're just seeing Dezo there come into the pits. So for Dele, looks as though he's trying to set another lap time here. We'll see if he can improve. His last one didn't look too bad until the end. Oh, slight drift there. Not what you want to be doing whatsoever. Don't want to be getting it wrong through that corner, costing him a lot of momentum. We'll see if this is an improvement though. Was a very good lap despite that mistake. Keeps him in, or puts him up to 2nd position, I should say, ahead of his teammate for now, Suku. Looks as though he's found an improvement though. Can he do it? Through the final corner he goes. Goes even quicker in the McLaren, 126.325, continuing his great form from last week. And you've got to say at the moment he's looking for class of the field in the race, and maybe that class is starting to shine through in qualifying. Pedro into the pits. I think a lot of these that have done multiple laps will now start heading into the pit lane. We've got Giggs, first man on a fresher set of tyres, coming to set a lap time. Only did one earlier with a 127.284, which judging by the times everyone else did, was a very respectable first run. So we'll see if he can find any improvement with that. The Haas driver seems to be getting more and more comfortable as the season goes on, and that is a good improvement from him. Half a second puts him into 5th position for now. I'd expect now, just because of these weather conditions, that if we're getting a dry race, we'll see most of the drivers maybe starting on the medium tyres, then going on to the hards later, or the softs if they can stretch it. I'd be very surprised if anyone does start on the soft tyres. The alternate strategy does seem extremely powerful on that game. We saw in F1 a lot of drivers go for that alternate strategy. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot do it this time as well, as Fidele takes pole position, found over a quarter of a second in that final sector. Fantastic final couple of corners from him. Puts him into provisional pole position now for a 126.224. Still looks like it's raining quite heavily. Indeed, we are about 13 seconds off of the pole position time that we did see in PS4 F1 earlier. So good time from Fidele for now. We are, though, a long way off slicks, and we won't see anyone attempt them in this session as Giggs has invalidated. Pasti invalidates as well. Desso just on an outlap at the moment, and Sam a long way down through Sector 1. So I think the Mercedes driver has made a mistake, and it's fair to say it's not been the season that I think the Mercedes drivers was expecting. I was expecting really good things from Desso and Sam. They have shown great pace on occasion. Sam, you could argue, probably should have won in Bahrain, but got involved with that incident with Speedster, who then had the win taken off of him, but only one podium for these guys at the moment. They are 4th in the Constructors' Championship on 64 points at this moment in time. So there's still plenty to come from Deso and Sam, I think. We'll have to wait and see just how these guys do. Sam has invalidated. We've got some great to see the Suku fan club back in the chat. They're loving what the guy is doing this season, and he's providing plenty of them to cheer about. Could well be more than a race win ahead in the championship after tonight. Indeed, if they finish where they're qualifying at the moment, will be that over that race win margin. So he's doing very well. You've got to say, Pedro just coming on an outlap at the moment. Fidele coming into the pits at last, as is Suku. So they'll be coming out one more time, one final run on the intermediate tyres, and it's currently Fidele who's yet to win a race this season. 2 podiums, with a 2nd in Australia and a 3rd in China, but points in every race for him, and that's something very few drivers can talk about at the moment, having points in every race. It's only Fidele. Sam has managed that as well. A few drivers have got points in every race that they have took part in, such as Williams, Boss Wanted, Super Mario has done that, but Sam and Suku, the only drivers who have been, well, Sam and Fidele, sorry, the only drivers who have been there for all 5 races so far and to have scored points in all 5 races. And it does look tonight it's going to be another one of them nights where, as long as you get to the checkered flag, you will be guaranteed at least a point. So we might see some pit stops from the slower guys towards the end of the race to put the set of soft tyres on and maybe steal that fastest lap point, as Deso moves his way up into 7th position, a 1:26.918 for him. Pretty close qualifying session, you've got to say at the moment, for a wet session, as Sam has invalidated. So let's see what the Ferrari of Pedro can do. Half a second improvement he needs to find at the moment, getting his best result last time out, his 2nd points result of the season with a 6th position. He was another driver, along with Boehner, who got caught up in that kerfuffle, it's fair to say, between Sam and Speedster early on in the season at Bahrain. So Pedro, just a bit of a warm-up lap that time around, not really looking like he's going to improve. Coutinho and Boehner have both invalidated, so we see Coutinho come into the pits, and I wonder if Boehner will follow. No, he's going to stay out for some more laps, so really leaving it until the end for these guys to set a competitive time. Pasty only 12 thousandths up on his personal best at the moment, which in fairness would move him ahead. Would move him ahead of Deso if it stays as it is, but again, through turn 12, almost a carbon copy, I'm guessing, of what he did last time around, because he's gone off in the same place. Make sure you get on track safely and don't cut in front of Deso. I don't think the Italian would have been too happy about that if Pasty would have ended up blocking him off there, but we'll see what the Mercedes can do as he comes through the final corner. Only 4 minutes to go. Can he challenge for pole position, maybe get his 2nd of the season? He can indeed. Great lap from Deso, 1:26.073, showing the advantage off there of them fresh tyres. Simo had invalidated, so he wasn't able to match Giggs on an out lap, so he's just setting a faster lap. Pedro, who's now down in 5th, has invalidated once again, so we're starting to see some quicker times. Deso just missing out on the 1:25s there. If he gets pole position here, it'll be his 2nd pole position of the season. Only Speedster so far with 3 poles in the last 3 races to get multiple pole positions. Deso getting 1 in Australia, and his teammate Sam getting 1 in Bahrain, which sort of matches up what I was saying. These drivers have definitely got the pace. It's just for whatever reason, at the moment, they haven't really been able to show it off too much in the race. Boehner, he's found a big improvement, moves himself up into 2nd position then, 5 thousandths ahead of Rail Fidele. Suku on an outlap, so we'll be seeing a hot lap from him very shortly. Sam, another driver on an outlap. Is Deso improving anymore? He's only 4 thousandths off his personal best at the moment. This could well be, or will probably be, his final run in this session. He's running low on fuel, so now might be a time to set a time that no one else can beat as he comes through the final corner. Can the Italian get himself up into the 1:25s? Yes, he can. 1:25.963, quarter of a second ahead of Boehner at the moment as Simon Cassiaro heads towards the line. He finds a slight improvement, only good enough though to keep him in 5th place. Giggs, he heads towards the finish line. Can he improve at all? No, he cannot. I wonder if he's going to find another time. We've got a yellow flag there. Pedro invalidated his time. Not sure if he came on track in front of Sam. It wouldn't matter anyway though. because Sam is on an outlap at this moment in time. This very wet qualifying session has caused a bit of a mix-up, you've got to say, at the moment. We're seeing some different guys struggling at different parts of the session. Coutinho, who's won 2 races this season, adrift at the bottom of the table at the moment. Can Fedele move himself up into the 1 minute 25? We'll see what sort of lap this is from the Red Bull driver. No, he cannot. Should be able to, though, carry on for another lap. Boehner is improving. Can he get himself up into the 125s? Could he challenge for pole position? Looks like he's backed off in the second sector, though, of that lap. Suku is definitely improving. This should put the championship leader on the front row. Will it be pole position, though? No, it will not at this moment in time. 126.1. Still needs to find another 1.5 tenths to get pole position then, with a minute remaining. Who is going to be on pole? Which, as I said earlier, no one who's got a pole position this season has won a race. Never mind just winning at that race, has won full stop. The 3 winners this season have yet to score pole positions at any circuit. Simon Casiaro has won a race. He stays in 5th for now, closed up to the back of his teammates, and it is getting very close between 2nd and 5th at the moment. You can see 126.1 for Suku, Boehner, Fedele and Simon Casiaro all in the 126.2s. Coutinho finding much more like what we would expect from him. Is this going to be good enough to move him off the foot of the table for the Williams driver? Indeed he does, up into 6th place for now. Sam has invalidated. Pedro's kept it clean this time around. I think those intermediates have seen the best of their lives, so I can't see any improvements from him in the final stage, as Giggs is going very slow. He's off the circuit at turn, well, looks like it was at the exit of turn 3, and he's broken his front wing as well. So not ideal for him whatsoever. Checkered flag is out. Can Boehner find an improvement? Move himself up the order. Indeed he does. He goes up to 3rd place. Watch out for Suku, though. This could be pole position for the McLaren driver. Indeed it is. 125.610. Fantastic lap from him. Pasti, he finds an improvement up into 6th position at the moment. So a great final lap from Suku. Simon Casiaro, he's invalidated, so he won't be getting any further up the order, as has Coutinho, and we know Giggs has got damage. Now, who else can find an improvement at the moment? I was going to say Sam's not looking too bad, but that is not an ideal way to go round turns 9 or 10, really, so I'll be very surprised if there's any improvement to come from him now. And indeed he is a second down. Pedro, he's still improving, despite this being 5-lap old intermediate tyres. He's still finding a bit of time at the moment, as is Fedele behind him. This qualifying session might not be over. I can't see Pedro challenging the top guys, and I can't see Fedele challenging Suku's time, but we could still see a Red Bull sneak their way onto the front row in the final stages. Let's see what Pedro can do. Sam just sort of in front of Fedele at the moment, gets well out of the way though, so Pedro, he heads across the line. He moves up into 4th place. What can Fedele do in the Red Bull? And he's run out of fuel. That was looking like a very good lap time for Fedele. Could have maybe even been good enough to take 5th position. But your pole sitter here for the first time this season. He's had 2 race wins so far. He's leading the championship by 18 points. He's in a prime position to extend that. Suku in the McLaren takes his and the team's first pole position of the season. Absolutely fantastic lap from him. Dezo in 2nd. Boehner 3rd. Pedro pulling it out the bag at the end to get 4th, and you gain that midfield section looking very close. 3 drivers setting 1 minute 26.1s, but the fastest man by 0.3 of a second is the McLaren on screen at the moment. Suku takes pole position for the Spanish Grand Prix. You can see there 3.5 tenths ahead of Dezo in the end. Boehner in 3rd position, Pedro 4th, Fedele 5th, Semo Casiaro 6th, Pasti 7th, Coutinho 8th. Still a very close qualifying session considering the wet conditions. Giggs is 9th, Sam in 10th place. 1.1 seconds separating the field. I get a feeling we could have a very good race. I have a feeling we could have an interesting race with different strategies. We don't know what the weather is going to be like at this moment in time. If I'm being honest, we're still a bit unsure about what the weather is going to be like. So let's see. Are we going to get a dry race? Are we going to get a mix of strategies if we do get a dry race? Because all the drivers will have tyre choice, and I'm sure they'll be hoping the weather in Barcelona resembles something like what we just saw on the loading screen very quickly, but there's only one way to find out, and it is beautiful sunshine here. So while the drivers are getting all their strategies ready for this race, can't change anything on the setup though, apart from now changes to the diff and the front wing and brake balance are the only changes you can make after you've set off in qualifying under parc fermé conditions, the same as in real Formula 1. While the drivers are getting their car set up, it's time to thank our sponsors, of course. Hype Energy, the big sponsors of all the F1 leagues here at Apex Online Racing. And also a big thank you to Elgato, who helped support some of the streams, and GT Omega as well. Make sure to check all those guys out. Make sure to check out what is about to happen here. No one who's qualified on pole has won a race yet, and it is an extremely long run down to turn 1. The longest on the calendar, I believe, at 900 meters. Only Mexico really comes anywhere close, and this season we had Mugello. Obviously, Russia does have a very long run, but that's technically turn 2 before you get to the braking zone, so we'll have to wait and see if Suku can hold on to the lead. Needs to get a good start. Might be tempted to start on the soft tyres to ensure you get that good start. Back in 2011, we saw Fernando Alonso go from 4th to 1st by turn 1 here, and then in turn 2013, he pulled off an absolutely fantastic move around the outside of 2 cars to help get himself to the victory there. And I'm not too surprised to report that absolutely no one has gone for those soft tyres. Suku and Desu on the hards. Bainer going for the mediums alongside Pedro. So if they get a very good start in these early stages, might be able to get enough traction out of the Racing Point and the Ferrari, respectively, to move up the grid. Both Red Bulls on the hard tyres. Coutinho, Sam also on the hards. You've seen Pasty and Giggs on those medium tyres. So safe to say a one-stop strategy all the drivers will be going for. Hards could maybe go onto the soft tyres end of the race if you're feeling good enough. Mediums I'd expect to be going onto the hard tyres roundabout lap 14, lap 15 at the latest. Those drivers I think will be changing to the hard tyres. Quite a tyre killer, especially similar to Zandvoort. That front left takes a hammering through the long turn 3 this corner as well. Puts a lot of stress on that Pirelli. There we go, pretty much confirming what I would say, which I'm not too confident about now, seeing as AWS insights. We all know how unpredictable they can be, shall we say? Saying 14 to 16 for a medium to hard stop. We won't be seeing anyone go for the 2-stop strategy unless there is damage, unless there is a safety car, of course. We might also see now if any of these drivers have gone for more glory runs in qualifying. I'll be surprised if they have gone for a more qualifying heavy setup, and I don't think it'd make too much of a difference here, just because of the high downforce nature of the track. But it's Suku who's going to have the prime position for this race. Our pole sitter for the first time this season, winner of the last race, 4 podiums out of 5, 3 in a row. The only blip on his record, Bahrain, where he could have easily taken a podium there as well. A win today, and he'll be looking very good at such an early stage in this championship. Sam in 10th takes up his final spot. Can he get a good result as well? Only 1 podium so far for the man, 5th in the championship. As we wait for the lights to come on here then in Spain, we've got 4, we've got 5 lights, and we are underway here at the Circuit de Catalunya. It's a good start from Suku. Pedro's had a very good start in the Ferrari. Alonso-esque, he's got his way past the Mercedes, and he's going to get his way past the Racing Point as well. Oh, very late on the brakes there from Deso. That's forced Bainer over the curb. Has that slowed anyone else down as well? I think Pedro just had to slow down to avoid any contact there. Fidele's now going to try and go all the way around the outside of the Ferrari. Not able to do so. Who might be able to send one down the inside of the Mercedes. Came so close to coming into contact with the back of him there. Coutinho has managed to get ahead of the Red Bull as well. Oh! Down the inside goes Pedro there. I think that was more defending from Fidele. Samo Cassiaro's nearly lost the back of the car, and that might give Giggs and Sam a bit of a run here. Sam just backing off for now. Very lively start to this race. Deso had an absolute shocker of a start. Nearly got passed by 2 cars. Very aggressive to try and recover that. Could have easily caused damage to Bainer and Pedro, who for a second I thought was going to emulate his countryman in the same car. Maybe not make his way up from 4th to 1st, but 4th to 2nd definitely looks possible, making best use of those medium tyres, as is Bainer. at this moment in time. Coming towards the end of lap 1, Simon Casiaro. What on earth was that? What on earth was that? Giggs has hit him as well. That's unacceptable. The only word for that is unacceptable. I can see why Giggs has done it as revenge, but there is absolutely no need for that whatsoever as Boehner round the outside at turn 1. This is what we want to see, lads. This type of racing. Fantastic move from Boehner. All the way around the outside. Great job for him. He takes the lead of this race. Suku now down to second. Pasti coming into the pits. Giggs in as well. Surely the Red Bull of Simon Casiaro is going to have to come in. He's got big damage as well, really ruining his one-stop strategy on those hard tyres. The great move there from Boehner around the outside, using that extra grip. He's just got to try and get away at this point in the race. Use those medium tyres to the best of his ability. Break that 1 second window. Because with 2 DRS zones on this track, you could easily see Suku have a move here. So let's wait and see how it goes. Dezo in 3rd position. Seems to have calmed down a bit in this midfield. Now Pedro came very close to overtaking him earlier on. Let's wait and see how this goes now for these lead cars. Dezo needs to hold up Pedro to have any chance. Next time around, they'll have DRS, will be activated on this lap. First time they'll be able to use it, though, is on the run down from turn 9 into the hairpin at turn 10. Fastest lap of the race last time around was Boehner. Great job from him to take the lead of this race, and he's done exactly what he needs to. He is checking out at the moment. 1.4 seconds now ahead of Suku. Absolutely fantastic job from him. Suku just needs to stay calm, try and be patient. Doesn't want to push these hard tyres too much if he's thinking about possibly going to the softs on them. We don't know yet, but it could be a possibility, in which case watch out for a fastest lap and an extremely good run from him here in later on in this race, going of course for his 2nd win in a row and his 3rd win of the season to extend his championship lead. Pedro not close enough. High downforce circuit as it is here at Spain, you do get a lot of dirty air, and especially on this game, so it could be hard now if you're in this DRS train to make any overtakes. So I was going to say we'd see an undercuts from some of these guys, but it's a long time for any of them will be thinking of pitting. Pasti came back out on the mediums. Giggs coming back out on the hards. Simo's still going around with a very broken front wing. We only really caught the end. Well, there was definitely something that had happened because Simo dropped down from 7th to 9th. And then he very quickly decided he wants to overtake everyone in one go. Him and Giggs came together. I think there was a second coming together as well. And I'm sure the stewards will have something to say about that. Especially, is he waiting for them to come back round here? What is he doing? I'm going to keep an eye on this, because there could be something very bad about to happen. And people need to know about it if it does, because it definitely looks as though he is waiting. He's definitely waited for Giggs. What up? There's only 10 people in this race, but let's make it one less. Let's just kick him out, because this is just... Yeah, there we go. We all saw that one coming, didn't we? Let's just ignore them now. That's confirmed my suspicions. Boehner, 2.3 seconds ahead of Suku here, extending that gap. Dezo just holding on at about 1 and a bit seconds behind. Virtual safety car, I'm guessing, full well there. Simo's got himself a penalty. I think we can all say what has happened there. He showed some good pace earlier on in the season. He's won one race. I don't want to see him race it again next week if that's the way he's driving. There, I said it. Are we going to see any pit stops? So Pedro trying to... not sure who he's trying to sell a dummy to there, because it would be a very silly decision to do that, if I'm being perfectly honest. At this point in the race, definitely wouldn't get to the end at any decent pace on the hard tyres. Not early enough for anyone to pit as well. Pasti going... Has Pasti been off the circuit again, or is he slowing down for... I don't want to think about it now. But Boehner, yeah, 3.3 seconds his gap at the moment. Needs to ensure he doesn't get a drive-through penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car. We've seen that cost many drivers over the years. There we go, DRS enabled once again. Suku 3 seconds behind. It looks like Boehner actually gained a bit from gained a bit from that VSC period, interestingly, and Pedro right on the back of Dezo just goes slightly deep. Needs to be a bit more careful through 8 and 9 if he wants to get a good run at the back of the Mercedes. You can see here Fedele doing very well at the moment to just keep in contact, and it's really costing Pedro all this. He's on the medium tyres, he needs to be using them in clean air. We can see what it's doing for the racing point of Bainer at the moment. And Pedro just stuck in the dirty air of the Mercedes at this moment in time, so not a lot he can really do. Definitely wouldn't be surprised if he pits a bit earlier than some of these guys as well. And it's fair to say, I normally like to keep impartial as a commentator, but I've got to say I agree with what Giggs has put there. Pedro not able to close up, Fedele not able to as well. So it's another lap they're stuck behind Deso, who, to be fair, isn't doing too bad at the moment. Like I said, he's keeping the gap constant to Suku. If he can get that gap within a second, that could really make things interesting, because then obviously he'll be dragging himself along and might even have a chance of overtaking. And then it is really going to be difficult for this Ferrari to work his way up the order if he wants to get a podium. Pedro really costing himself dearly here. He's really having a difficult day of it at this moment in time. As Simon Casiaro retires from the race, no points for him. We're down to just 8 runners here then. Pasti, even though he's the last runner at the moment, could well be on for 4 points, as Pedro had a huge moment there coming out of turn 10, already struggling a bit on traction, bit of a heavy right foot, plus dirty air, plus I imagine very hot tyres from being stuck behind the Mercedes for so long. Really costing him there. Is he going to have DRS? He has still got it. That's good news for him, because that will help him defend from Fedele. If he feels the need to, you can see he's just breaking the toe ever so slightly there. Not able to make the overtake though. Sam has made an overtake, gets ahead of Coutinho. The Mercedes is up into 6th position at the moment. Didn't have the best qualifying, gained 4 places from his starting position. What can Sam do in the latter stages of this race? Can he get himself up on the back of the train that is currently being led by his teammate? You see a lot of inside front lockups there. You'll get away with that. It's the unloaded tyre, not a big issue. You do need to be careful though into that braking zone at turn 5, because it is very easy to run deep because of the downhill nature of it. Pedro's got a bit closer to Dezo than he was earlier. He's got that gap back down to within 0.8 of a second. It's just this awkward half a second gap that you see quite often on this new F1 game, where you're not able to overtake the car in front, you just stay in contact with them. At least, I suppose, one positive from that is you are able to maybe save a bit of fuel and save a bit of ERS for when you do get a proper overtaking opportunity, perhaps later on in the race, to really go for it. At the moment in time though, looks like it's just as you were. Fedele a lot closer than he's been in previous laps though to Pedro here, and I think it's a good job for the Ferrari man that he's got that DRS, otherwise he would really be under threat, possibly already getting to the point where these mediums aren't as good as the hards. In the next few laps, expect to see Dezo maybe just pull away ever so slightly from the Ferrari, and then he will be under pressure from the Red Bull of Fedele at this moment in time. In the lead though, looking fairly comfortable, seeing as he managed to get the free air on lap 2 with the overtake on Suku Bainer. 4.9 seconds in the lead of this race. We have seen some good performances from him so far this season. Points in the first 2 races, didn't finish in Vietnam, and that was the last time we saw him. Could he just maybe sneak a victory here? Depends on how much he's taken out of his tyres with this early charge and how well he can do later on in the race on either the hard tyres. Most probably the hard tyres. They'll have got maybe an extra lap of life because of that virtual safety car period, but still nowhere near enough to really realistically go for a run on these soft tyres. Dezo, that gap's got to about a second at the moment, and it was just over a second at that all-important point, but Fedele's just a bit further back this time around. So already, as I was saying, those mediums look cooked on Pedro's car. Definitely not as quick as he was earlier, and he's going to have a big defending job to do on the Red Bull and the Mercedes very shortly, which will just overheat the tyres even more. It could be a long, long evening now for the Ferrari driver at this moment in time. So we'll have to see what he can do. You can see Fedele behind, just getting a side on as well. So it's not like the Red Bull looks too confident. Sam's managed to catch up to these fairly quickly. Coutinho getting dropped. Just doesn't seem to have had the pace this time around. Didn't look, to his credit, didn't look amazing in Holland, but did a very good job of keeping it clean on penalties and working the strategy very well to get a podium. It seems weird that we're saying someone who's had 2 victories and a 3rd place so far this season doesn't look amazing, as that's a very late move from Fedele. I think it's a good job Pedro saw that coming, as that could have easily led to a spin. The Red Bull driver seems to be having a very interesting evening of it at this moment in time. Pedro 4th, Fedele 5th, Sam in 6th position. Is any of them going to be able to take advantage? You've got to imagine if he's nailed that final corner. I was going to say Fedele could have a chance of overtaking Pedro here. Sam, if he had a bit of more DRS, would probably have a better chance of overtaking the Red Bull, who's not going to be close enough to the Ferrari, and the Mercedes just running out of DRS. Might be worth Sam saving a bit there, because he had a much better run through the final corner. Just gives Fedele a little love tap. Uses up his DRS again. Won't have enough of an overlap to get down the inside into turn 4. But all this battling, see, Dezo's now 2 seconds ahead of these guys, and it is bringing Coutinho onto the back of the train as well. So still hopes for him if he can keep it nice and clean, because these keep battling at it tooth and nail like they were then. You might even see a bit of contact. Hopefully not, as Pedro does a fantastic save through that 8-9 chicane. Fedele is going to have DRS once again, but once again isn't going to be close enough to really go for an overtake. And it is as you were for 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, just allowing Dezo to run his own race at the moment. Ever since the first couple of laps and that bad start, he's been about 1.5 seconds behind Suku. So these two could be close at the end of the race. Will we see an undercut from Dezo when it comes to the pit stop time? In about, I imagine, 7 or 8 laps time if they go into the mediums, maybe a bit longer. They're planning on going for the softs, as Fedele's gone to the inside on Pedro. Nothing the Ferrari can do. That is a change of position. Red Bull now up into 4th place. How long before Sam can follow through? Will he be able to follow through? As he is, of course, the 3rd man in this DRS train. It is very difficult to follow and make an overtake when you are in that position. Coutinho has a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings at the moment. Obviously pushing hard to just keep onto the back of these guys. Sam thinks about to move into turn 5. Gives Pedro a little tap. No harm done though. And already Pedro about 8/10 of a second behind Fedele, so will still have DRS here. Probably won't have it on the main straight. So if Sam, quite wisely I think, not using up any of his DRS very late on the brakes, Sam doesn't use up any, he may have a chance to get Pedro on the straight. Oh, he won't if he drives like that, and that's going to allow Coutinho just to go, thank you very much, straight up the inside. That is Coutinho up into 6th. Massive oversteer moment for Sam through turn 12. Very similar to what we saw Pasti happen to him a couple of times during qualifying. That was in the wet, obviously. With DRS, doesn't look like it'll be a challenge for Sam to get that position back, but now, though he is running low on ERS, so he might not be able to do it, and that's really cost Sam. He was right on the back of Pedro. Now he's probably got to spend at least half a lap, probably a full lap, stuck on the back of Coutinho. Not ideal whatsoever, and you can just see Pedro just about keeping in contact with the Red Bull at this moment in time. I'm sure we'll be hoping to escape in a similar fashion to what Dezo has done, because he's now 2.6 seconds ahead of the Red Bull and 1.3 behind Suku. 1.3, 1.5 seconds. I think Dezo's going to go for an undercut at some point. He needs to think about something different, because we've seen how hard it is to overtake. I know this is too early. I'm talking about 6-7 laps time. Maybe just think doing the opposite of Suku, because you want to do something different, and if it works out, you should still get the race win. Which currently, this man is looking very good for the race win. Bainer, lap 13 then, 6.4 seconds. His lead, still putting in a decent pace on those medium tyres. We'll just check what the last lap was then. for Boehner. Last time around it was a 118.3 opposed to a 118.4 from Suku, who set his fastest lap of the race. So the hards are definitely still in good condition. Boehner not doing too bad as well. Maybe he can go on an extra lap or two than we were expecting. Does look to have plenty of good pace at this moment in time. Coutinho still ahead of Sam. I think Sam's just using a bit too much ERS. Needs to maybe accept his fate for a lap, then go for it. He might have a chance of getting past Coutinho, who has already caught up to the back of Pedro again, who's dropped more than that magic second behind. So I think Pedro could well be coming in at the end of this lap or the next one. Getting on those medium tyres gave him an absolutely fantastic launch from 4th position. Nearly made his way up into 2nd. It was a very aggressive defence from Deso that ended up dropping Pedro back behind Boehner, and in the end Deso managed to get back ahead of him as well. So Pedro could well, even if he had some free air, we could well see a Boehner-Pedro 1-2 at this moment in time. But that didn't happen. He's just got to deal with the hand he's been dealt. And that the hand he's been dealt at the moment is extremely worn medium tyres and a very fast Williams and Mercedes behind him, who are both going to have DRS down this main straight. And I think very shortly Coutinho is going to have that 5th position. You can see Pedro not really bothering to defend. He knows he's on a different strategy to these guys. And that is the Williams up into 5th position. Man currently 2nd in the championship wants to keep hold of that, as he is currently only, well, 3 points ahead of Simo Cassiaro, but I don't think he'll be taking too much part in many races from now on. He is only 10 points ahead of Fedele, though, who looks to have a bit more pace at this moment in time. And Sam, how he must be ruined that mistake earlier through turn 12. He's got himself ahead of Coutinho, was looking feisty all over the back of Pedro and Fedele. And in the end, those two have just streaked away from him now. Damage, consolation, all that he can do, and just kind of try and reduce what damage he can have to his race. Boehner struggling a bit more now then. Suku definitely faster on this lap, so we can only be a lap or two away, I think, before we see these medium runners come into the pits and put the hard tyres on. Boehner staying out another lap. Deso still keeping it in that magical 1.5 second gap. Pedro might carry on a bit more now that he's got DRS. I'm not sure I'd recommend it, because those tyres look absolutely dreadful on traction through some of these corners. Sam's not really close enough to have a go. Pedro not close enough to have a go back at Coutinho, so it's all going to just stay status quo as it is at the moment. And someone we haven't looked at for a while, Pasti, involved in whatever happened on that first lap between himself, Simo and Giggs. I think Pasti might have definitely been a very innocent party, and it looked like Giggs was as well. He's just carrying on, knows if he finishes he gets 4 points, so definitely worth carrying it on to the end for the sole Renault driver tonight. Short shifting just to save a bit of fuel maybe here from Boehner. We're not seeing that fuel marker at the moment, but maybe the fact that he's doesn't seem to be pushing extremely hard on this lap and looks to be driving a bit within himself makes me think he might be trying to carry on a bit longer. We'll have to wait and see around the next couple of corners whether he comes into the pits. Still keeping that gap to Suku constant at about 6 seconds. And this is the championship leader, who, if things stayed as they are, would become the first man this season to get onto 100 points. He'd be on 101. Coutinho would be on 75, so it would be a 26-point race lead going into the final round before the break, and before we hopefully get a few more new drivers to come in and add a bit more of participation to the field after the Monaco Grand Prix. Next time around, make sure not to miss that. There's always some action and there's always chaos at Monte Carlo. As Coutinho still can't get away from Pedro, but Pedro's not challenging him. And Sam, I've said it before and I'll say it again, third man in the DRS train, it is always going to be extremely difficult to overtake the second one unless he makes a mistake. This might be the chance though. At the end of the next straight, coming into turn 10, at the end of the DRS straight, he might have a possibility now. He's very close to the back of the Ferrari, sticking out of the dirty air ever so slightly. You can see though, just loses time through 8 and 9. He'll drop back through 10 as well. DRS open. Is he going to be close enough to go for a lunge into the hairpin? Not this time around, but should definitely have a chance down the main straight. That's if we don't see the Ferrari come into the pits, because He really doesn't look to have any pace as race leader Bader into the pits. Don't speed, because that could well cost you the race victory if you pick up a 5-second speeding penalty there. And it wasn't really close. Pedro into the pits as well. It'll be hard tyres on Bader's car. Pedro just about getting it slowed down in time. Hard tyres on Bader's car, and he'll be in free air, so he can make best use of those hard tyres. Now he's going to have to, because that 6-second lead he had all of a sudden is a net 1-second lead, assuming that Suku keeps it nice and clean in the pit stop. So it's 5 seconds now between Bader and Sam. I'll be hoping they come in shortly, because if he gets on the back of that DRS train, of course, it's going to be difficult for him to overtake. Though, because of Pedro's pit stop, Sam is now outside of DRS range. He's been promoted up into 5th place. Coutinho up into 4th. Pedro's come out in 7th on another set of the mediums, so this is interesting. Not sure why you'd start on the mediums and go medium, soft, and especially go that long on the medium tyres, but I wonder if that's a mistake from Pedro or a mistake with the game, because I don't get that strategy, to be honest. Will be looking good to put the soft tyres on the end and go for that additional fastest lap point, of course, because whoever gets the fastest lap point today, as long as they don't retire, will finish in the top 10, so will be eligible for that point. And we've seen Pasty come in for another set of hard tyres as well. Again, just presuming he didn't have any mediums, because it might have made a bit more sense to go onto those for the final part of the race. Suku leading, then Dezo 1.2 seconds behind at this moment. 1.8 seconds for Dele. Further 2.2 seconds back, so 4.1 seconds off the leader. Coutinho said he didn't have amazing pace. He was only 7.5 off of Suku, so pretty decent job from him. Sam as well, extremely close between all those on the hard tyres. A few penalties could well make the difference in this race. Bader just on his own halfway through the race, and 17 laps gone, 16 to go. Will he take the victory, or will that penalty end up costing him in the end? Could all depend on how long Suku can drag these hard tyres out for. Maybe an extra lap or two, or if he's going for the softs, as Bader really pushing hard at the moment on these hards, lighting up the rears through 8 and 9 to try and go as quickly as possible. He's not exactly playing up to the back of Sam at the moment. I'm sure this could well be the fastest lap of the race once he's finished on these hard tyres. Are any of the leaders coming into the pits then? Because I think Dezo or Fidele might be the first ones, and there we go. Fidele is into the pits. He's going for this undercut here. Doesn't get it slowed down in time either. Coutinho. These lads do realise that 80 is kilometres an hour, not miles per hour, right? Because we've seen, how many, 3 of the last 4 people to come into the pits have got a speeding penalty at the moment. So Fidele out on the mediums. He's going for that undercut strategy. He knows he's got a chance here of getting a podium. This could force Dezo and Suku to come into the pits a bit earlier than what they would have liked. It's going to be close between Pedro and Coutinho. Coutinho just comes out ahead. Pedro's got the advantage of the tyre warmth though. Can he go round the outside at turn 1? Yes, he can. Great wheel-to-wheel racing between the two of them. Second time we've seen some fantastic moves around the outside of turn 1 there. And Pedro up into 6th position for now. Coutinho just having to settle for 7 on 1 lap fresher tyres. This might just come to him later on. It might come to him now, because Pedro has gone extremely deep there into turn 6. Just about holds on to that position. And when we're going to see the lead 2 drivers pit then? Dezo has to be wary of the undercut now. And he is, so he comes into the pits. Second place man in to the pits at the end of lap 19. Gets it slowed down in time. Bit more conservative than we saw from some of the others. You don't get yourself a 5-second penalty that way. Medium tyres on the Mercedes. He will be coming out behind Fidele. Well, he'll be coming out very close to Fidele, I think. It was a 2-second gap, and the mediums will have been much quicker. Bader then with fastest lap of the race. Who is going to be coming out then in 4th position at this moment in time? Will it be Dezo? Will it be Fidele? And in the end, the Mercedes, he's just about had enough of the margin. He stays in 4th place. Coutinho using DRS to get ahead of Pedro then. On lap 20, the Williams works his way back up into 6th position. And all them pit stops, surely now's the time then Suku comes into the pits. He'll have fresher mediums than those behind him. saw that the undercut not powerful enough to make a 2-second gap difference. Fedele still coming out 1.5 behind Deso, but I don't think Suku will be wanting to play it too risky and go a bit longer and maybe think about putting them soft tyres on. Not doing too bad though. It's about 14 seconds ahead of Boehner when the Racing Point pitted, and he's still 12 points ahead, and he's still going on another lap. Boehner was the fastest man on track though last lap, and currently has that fastest lap of the race, 1:17.539, a very good time on the hard tyres. Sam carrying on another lap as well in the Mercedes. It's worth him trying something different. If he pits now, he'd come out in 7th position, so definitely worth Sam taking a bit more of a risk and thinking, what can I do? What can I do to try and maximise my results from this race? Again, him and Fedele, the only two drivers who have scored points in every race this season, as Coutinho, fastest lap of the race. DRS assisted, of course, down the straight last time. Still showing, though, that he's got a bit more pace on the mediums than he did have on the hards. 1:17.0 from him, just taking that fastest lap point off of Fedele. This battle for 4th position at the moment. They are currently 10 seconds behind Boehner, so it's going to be a big job for Deso and Fedele to catch that up. Or Deso has to catch up, though, he's 5 seconds, of course, because the Racing Point has a penalty. So it's still all to play for between these guys, and definitely still all to play for the race win as well. Here's the guy in the net race lead then. Started on the medium tyres, 11.3 seconds off the lead of this race at the moment, and starting to catch up to Sam. This could all depend on A, when Sam pits, and B, when Boehner catches him up if Sam doesn't pit soon, because ideally you'd want to catch him up at a point where you're going to get DRS, maybe into turn 10 next time around, or down this main straight. Catch him up halfway through turn 3, you're just going to lose so much time in the dirty air, could make a mistake, could run off track, get yourself an extra warning and possibly a penalty. As Fedele is really pushing at the moment, 1:17.141, fastest lap of the race for the Red Bull driver. He tries to get within a second of Deso and give himself a go at overtaking the Mercedes driver. But back to what I was saying, you can see already, now that he's within 3/4 of a second, a bit of understeer creeping into that Racing Point. Could find it a bit trickier as the race goes on. He's not going to be close enough to get Sam into turn 10, I believe. Have to wait and see where he is going to try it in the Racing Point. Is he able to have a go into turn 10? No. Just needs to line him up into turn 1 to make sure he'll have DRS anyway. But if Sam doesn't pit, he needs to ensure he gets past him this lap, or he could really start being in trouble and really start losing a lot of time to the race leader, which is currently Suku, who does look as though he is going for those soft tyres. 22 laps at the moment on the hards. I think Suku is playing the long game, and I think Sam is as well. Is Boehner close enough? You can see Sam there trying to break the slipstream ever so slightly. He's going to run out of ERS though, and I think the extra performance on the brakes might be enough for Boehner. He did this to Suku earlier, all the way around the outside, and he's done it again. Great move from the Racing Point. He is up into 2nd position. 11 seconds behind Suku, plus that 5-second penalty makes it 16 seconds. But he's definitely on the faster tyres at the moment, as Pedro repays the favour from Coutinho a couple of laps ago. Works his way back up into 6th position. The field is sort of splitting into different groups at the moment. You're going to have Deso and Fedele possibly battling for what is now 4th place. But will become 2nd after the pit stops. You've got these guys battling for 6th and 7th, and will still be that, I imagine, after the pits. So plenty of battles going on out on track. Sam still within DRS range of Boehner, but won't really be able to go for an overtake, of course. And it wouldn't surprise me if this lap or next lap we see the McLaren and the Mercedes, the only two cars not to have pitted, come into the pits and take on a fresh set of tyres. Suku's carrying on another lap longer. But now that Boehner's got that free air, you can see he's really closed the gap, and not 1.5 seconds quicker on that lap alone. Needs to push hard to give himself a chance of getting his first podium and therefore first victory of the season. Is Coutinho going to be close enough to Pedro then this time around to retake that 6th position? Definitely does not look like it at the moment, so he'll be staying in 7th for now. You can save a bit of fuel though, he's got the fresher tyres, so this battle's not necessarily over Coutinho does have at least 6 seconds of penalties, though I believe Pedro has 3. We'll check in the final few laps, depending on what is happening, what the penalty situation is like, of course. Looks like, though, we are going to see a Mercedes possibly on the podium. Desso in 4th position at the moment. Net 2nd place. Suku might catch him up later on, but that's still a 3rd place for Desso, who I think he needed this. This is actually going to be his last race with his Thrustmaster wheel. He has said he's going to be buying a Fanatec, so we'll have to see if he uses that next time out at Monaco, because I'm not sure Monaco's a track you'd want to be getting used to a new wheel with. I'm not sure Azerbaijan, after the first of the breaks this season, is another one that you'll want to be getting used to a wheel with either. So, doing well at the moment. Only 10 points this season. He'll have been disappointed with that after qualifying on pole in the first race. I know he expected big things from Vietnam, and in the end could only finish in 8th. This looks more like the Deso that we've seen in F1 before, that we expected to see this season. And again, Pedro holding off through Coutinho as well. You can see that concertina effect just opening up like a slinky, being pushed down the stairs by a child here. And is that a bit of rain on the camera? And is that why Suku and Sam are going so long on the hard tyres? Because now it all makes sense as Coutinho sends it round the outside. Now it all makes a lot of sense. We have got rain at this Grand Prix. Well, this has put a fly in the ointment, hasn't it, for a few of these drivers? If Sam and Suku's tyres don't blow up in the next lap or two, it's not raining anywhere near heavy enough yet. They may have played this perfectly, and from nowhere could look like they're going to get a victory. So Suku doing a very good job on the hard tyres. They'll have followed the instructions of the game, but trust me, just because the game says it's going to rain in the final box of the race does not mean anything. Suku's into the pits. I think this is a bit early. I think this is early. He's into the pits, although look at the understeer that Sam's got. Boehner's carrying on another lap as well. I think Suku's gone a lap early. DRS is still enabled, and that is usually the gold standard. Intermediate tyres for Suku. This is a big risk. Whether he thought he was just too close to puncture territory to stay safe, we'll have to see how he does on this lap on the intermediate tyres, but I'd have thought at least one more before it is ready. This could change things as well. He's 14.6 seconds, we'll say 15 seconds behind Boehner at this moment in time. What will the gap be when it comes to the pits? And you can see already how much he is oversteering at the moment. This just stays dry enough for Boehner. He might still be in an okay situation here to take the race victory, because it's definitely raining, but the spots aren't dominating the screen at the moment. He's looking pretty good. Desso's going to be within DRS range of his teammate very shortly. Sam's going to be really struggling on those tyres. DRS open on Desso. He's not close enough to go for a move. You see Pedro there's got himself a 3-second time penalty, as he did drop behind Coutinho. And Suku's dropped behind Coutinho, as has Pedro. He's gone too early. The championship leader has made a bit of a mistake here. He's gone a lap too early, at least for the intermediate tyres. He was about 15 seconds behind Boehner when he came out of the pits. It's now 21, understeering and oversteer. Sam comes into the pits. I think even he might think it's a bit early, but 26 lap old tyres, probably no choice for these guys who were hoping the rain might have come a lap or two earlier. So Sam is going to come out, and Suku's coming back into the pits. He doesn't think it's wet enough yet. He has blown this race, Suku. Was looking good for a podium at least, possibly a race victory. He's coming back into the pits. Is this another set of intermediates? It's soft tyres on Suku's car. And if it rains really heavily now, he could end up looking a bit silly indeed. So Suku back out on the soft tyres, and still DRS is enabled. Still, it's nowhere near wet enough. Boehner now with an 8.4 second lead over Desso. No, Boehner does have a 5-second penalty, but he's still looking good for the win. For Dele within DRS range now of Desso. We've got a battle for second position. All of a sudden, Coutinho finds himself in 4th place. The rain is still coming down. Still not really coming down hard enough to warrant intermediate tyres at this moment in time. So, Suku and Sam, things might have just not gone as they would have planned at the moment. Suku down in 7th, where I think if the rain had come down a bit heavier, he'd be looking good for a victory. Still going to get points though. does look as though Coutinho might just be closing the gap ever so slightly, as Sam's struggling on those intermediates. They're developing too much heat. They really do only work on a cold track because of the tread block movement. He is really struggling on those intermediates. Will he hold it out, or will he, like Suku, decide, no, enough is enough, I need to come into the pits? He's going to just try and stay out on track. If this backfires, he'll be last. If it starts raining heavily now, could still manage to get 4th position. Fedele really closing up to the back of Deso, though. 6 laps to go. Looks like Boehner is absolutely clear to take the victory. He can just take his time and ensure he pits at the right moment. Getting a bit of understeer. We're getting a bit more rain on the visor. We might not be too far away from intermediate tyres, but I still don't think it is wet enough at this moment in time. Daly all over the curb. He's got no ERS. He needs to save a bit. He wants to have any realistic chance of overtaking Deso in the Mercedes. This would be a great performance from Deso. As I said, it'll be his first podium. It'll be Boehner's first podium. It'll be Fedele's 3rd podium, but yet to get a victory has the Red Bull driver, but he's looking very good at the moment for another podium. 5 laps remaining then. Boehner, 9.4 seconds in the lead of this race. Sam still losing time on those intermediate tyres. Still persevering with them, though. You can just hear the lock up there. Not losing as much time as Suku was, so the track's definitely wetter, but still nowhere near as wet as we saw in qualifying. It's nowhere near as dark as we saw in qualifying. And oh, he's nearly lost the rear completely. He'd have been better served just putting on the soft tyres for now when he'd have pitted, and then putting on the intermediates later. He's just committed to staying out on track, and I think very shortly Suku will get ahead of him, but unless it starts raining right now, 6th place will be the best that Sam can hope for. Pedro's still really close to the back of Coutinho. Fedele's lost a bit of time past it. He's really got nothing to lose, but it'll be interesting to see whether he goes for the soft or the intermediate tyres. But Pasti is coming into the pits. Fedele's dropped more than a second behind Deso. All of a sudden, just gets back within that 1 second. Intermediate tyres now for Pasti, as Suku has made his way past Sam into turn 4. These two stayed out on track the longest on the hard tyres. Nearly worked out perfectly. The rain just didn't come hard enough. They're now fighting over 6th and 7th and expect the McLaren to just pull away, at least for the next few corners. DRS is still enabled. It's still really a dry track, and Sam's still understeering at certain parts, oversteering at others. Not enjoying this whatsoever. I can't imagine Pasti is either, now that he's come back out onto intermediate tyres, but again, might feel like he really didn't have a lot to lose being down in last place. Looking back at the Mercedes then of Deso, Fedele you can see behind him there, 8.7 seconds he's behind the leader. So now these are on the medium tyres and it is a bit damp, they'll keep their temperature better than the hards that Boehner's on. That is why they're closing up the gap there. Fedele looks as though he's gone very deep at turn 4. He's locking up a bit more. That could just be a bit of tyre wear, a bit of dirty air. Nothing to suggest that the intermediates are the better tyre at the moment. Sam lost about 4 seconds, I think, that lap. We'll just have a quick check. Last time around, he did a 1 minute 28. When you consider Boehner, the race leader, did a 1 minute 26. It's definitely getting more marginal now as to whether the intermediate tyres are the better or not. They're not losing as much time. He looks to have a bit more confidence, does Sam, and he'll have a bit more heat, of course, when Coutinho and Pedro come in. So I said, unless it starts raining heavier, 6 might be the best he's hoping for. He could still manage to pick up a top 4 finish, which would be a fantastic result. A few more of these are struggling. Boehner's carrying on another lap, as are Deso and Fedele. 3 laps remaining. Are they now thinking it's just not worth coming in for the intermediate tyres? We're not going to lose enough time? We're not going to lose enough time on the slicks to make it worthwhile. We'll have to wait and see, because still Sam is losing a lot of time to Suku, as you would expect, being on the soft tyres, but he's not really losing anything to the leader, who has lost a second last time around. And of course, Boehner, he's got nothing to gain and everything to lose from this situation. He'll be hoping the rain stops at this intensity, because if it gets any heavier, it could be a big struggle for him. And now Sam is actually going quicker than the race leader, and there is the sign, DRS disabled. I wouldn't like to be on 13-lap old hard tyres at this moment in time. I'd even less like to be on the 13-lap old mediums that Pedro is on, because that's nearly at the end of the life on those, but he is really struggling. Now it makes sense why he went onto the mediums. I do apologise, Pedro, for what I said earlier. I thought you'd just messed up, but it didn't look like it was going to rain, to be fair, when I said it. But fair play, this might have worked out absolutely perfectly for you. Look at the understeer that Boehner has got. It's going to be a 2-lap shootout to the flag here. Is anyone going to try and think, I can stick this out on the tyres that I'm on? Sam gets a penalty. Maybe Suku might try and stick it out on the soft, but again, doesn't have a lot to gain from doing so. He'll drop behind Sam, definitely, and could even drop behind Pasti if it goes wrong. So Boehner and Deso and Fidele is staying out. He's the one braving this out. Well. This takes some cojones, as they would say, and we've had a spinner, and it is Pedro making sure he gets well out of the way. Similar place to where Leclerc went off, and he's put a wheel in the gravel. That's going to be difficult. He's damaged his front wing. So Pedro is in 5th place. He comes into the pits. Coutinho staying out on circuit as well. But Boehner has served his penalty. Pedro gets a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Look how close Deso is now, though, to the back of Boehner. 1.7 seconds with 2 laps to go. Sam, of course, stays out. He just about timed it right on these intermediates. Maybe a lap later and he could have been golden. He's in 5th place. Looking like a good race for Mercedes at the moment to try and close up on the back of some of those in the constructors. Looking good here on 64 points at the moment. Red Bull will be getting the most thanks to Fidele's win. A lot of interesting action still to come here. Pedro out in 6th. Suku in 7th. Pedro does have a penalty, so we could still see the championship leader move up. Just how will Fidele and Coutinho do? Can Fidele hold on to this race lead on the medium tyres? It would be an absolutely superb performance if he can do so. Just look how much grip, though, he hasn't got on those tyres. We'll check a comparison to Sam at the end of this lap, because Sam's the only one who's done a full lap on these tyres, but he's really struggling. And Boehner straight round the outside of Coutinho as if the Williams isn't even there. That's 2nd place for the Racing Point. He's got 11 seconds to catch up to get the victory on this race. I think he's going to do it. And Deso, you can see there, easily getting past Coutinho as well. The gamble has not paid off. Now that they've gone with it, Coutinho sticking with it. He could even lose time to Pedro here. He's on completely the wrong tyres. But here we go then. Final lap of the race. 8.8 seconds for lead here. Can Fidele hang on? I think it's going to all be over somewhere in Sector 2, when it was nearly all over completely there for him. I will now check how he did last lap around compared to Fidele. Well, Fidele on the mediums are 1 minute 37. Sam on the intermediates are 1 minute 27. So 10 seconds difference. There is Boehner. 4.5 seconds. It's over. The question is now, fair play to Fidele. He's going to hold on to a podium. That's where he was before. He hasn't lost. Well, I say he hasn't lost anything from this. Sam could, I suppose, catch him up if it all goes horrifically wrong. But here we go. Only a few more corners to go. We're coming into the final sector. Boehner is within 3/4 of a second. He's going to do it, surely, at the same point as where he got past Coutinho. There's nothing Fidele can do on traction. Boehner takes the lead of this race. A lead he has held pretty much solely since lap 2, and there's not a lot anyone can do about it. Yellow flags as Coutinho goes round, but he's able to hold on. Fidele gets past for 3rd position. It nearly worked out for him, just got a bit too wet for those, but Boehner crosses the line to take the victory here in Spain. It's a 2nd position, and Deso gets it on penalties. Well, I didn't realise Boehner had a 3-second penalty. Deso takes his first victory of the season. Great job from Boehner to get 2nd. Fidele crosses the line in 3rd. Sam comes home in 4th. Coutinho will cross the line in 5th position for him, and he will close up. Well, I say he'll close up to Suku. He's got an absolute mountain of penalties to serve. Pedro will cross the line in 6th. I expect Suku might jump up into 5th position for the McLaren. Indeed he does, and Pasti kept it going until the end. He has been rewarded with 6th place for the first win of the season on penalties in the end, but he will not care for Deso. driver of the day from Sam. Great job to keep those hard tyres and just timed it a bit better than Suku in the end going to the intermediates. Fantastic job from Sam. Fantastic job from both Mercedes drivers, I have to say. Nice selfie to celebrate in the rain, and it's typical that after saying at the start of this stream that you don't see too much rain here at Spain. We had a wet qualifying and a wet end to the race. Dezo showered in champagne now with his first victory of the season. A first podium for Boehner, and for Daly, he tried something different. He didn't lose anything in the end, finishing in 3rd place and gets a bonus point for the fastest lap, so a pretty good job from him. Sam recovering from last on the grid to take 4th position. Suku pitted too early for the intermediate tyres, then had to make another stop for the softs, then back to the intermediates. What could have been from him will retain the championship lead though, and extend it ever so slightly after finishing in 5th. Pasti, fair play to him and Deso, the only 2 drivers to keep it clean. Pasti comes home in 6th, Coutinho 7th, Pedro is 8th, Simo and Giggs. I think that is definitely going to the stewards, that incident, after something happened beforehand and then we saw Giggs obviously get taken out. And we'll just have to see how things go at this moment in time. So a great job there. Great job from Deso to take his first victory of the season. Could this be a comeback from him? We know he's got pace. He has had pole position so far this season. It's the first time anyone who's had pole at any race has taken a victory. But again, the pole sitter has not ended up winning the race, partly because of the weather. He'd have definitely had a chance if it had stayed dry and he'd have gone to the soft tyres. Would have been a very interesting end to the race. We had an interesting end anyway, with Fideli and Coutinho trying everything to keep their medium tyres warm enough. If Coutinho hadn't have spun, he'd have probably been rewarded with 5th place. It was definitely worth a risk for both of them. Next time out though, I don't think we'll see as many risks, because here you have runoff area. At Monaco, you definitely do not, and that will be the home for round 7 of this championship. We've had another winner here this season, our 4th of the season, Deso, with a fantastic performance to take the victory in the end. Boehner so close to taking the win. That 3-second penalty and of course the pit lane speeding penalty costing him, as Deso kept it clean. Will he be able to come back in Monaco? Will we see Suku maybe extend his championship lead a bit more on the streets of the Principality? Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all next time around.